It's not a joke if you're Russian, but I actually managed not to get drunk,
Well,
which is very important. Anyway, so great that we already started with questions. XBB.1.5 is particularly the strain that about 70% of East Coast is now seeing. All the infections. Apparently, so Al, that's actually correct. This new variant is the most basically it evades pretty much everything. It evades all existing vaccines, including the updated vaccine. However, it seems to be even less virulent than the original Omicron. So we're not seeing an anticipated increase in admissions in the hospitals yet, thank God. So I guess that's a good sign. But the numbers are slowly upticking, although to be honest with you, because RSV and flu have dropped dramatically down in the last about 2-3 weeks, the actual amount of people coming in with more severe symptoms is decreasing, not increasing. So which is a good news. So yeah, basically you should ask the question then, well, why do I even need the vaccine? Well, the vaccine seemingly is still protecting against severity of illness. So that's basically that point. Now, in terms of how long before one can catch COVID again, that's actually a great question. I probably put the number at around 6 months. I'm doing this based on some of the readings I've done in combination with what I'm seeing. But I think it's probably highly variable because I have had several patients who got it within 3 months. So it's probably, especially since the variants are changing. So you may get a different variant at some point. And then the question whether it's safe to go to movies, eat out, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's a good question. Now, the things with the movies, you can put the mask on, right? So when you're not eating, I presume you're not a big fan of popcorn. If you are, well, but if you're not, you can just go with a mask. I think that would probably be okay. And then eating out is a bit more complicated, obviously, because you can do that with a mask on. So the anticipation is that there will be some surge around next week because 2 to 3 weeks after the holidays when everybody's traveled. We'll see. Yeah, Paxlovid works just as fine against the XBB as any other variants. So I think that's a good news. And I have not switched to prescribing other things yet, just because I think the track record of Paxlovid is so good and we're not seeing resistance. The only time that Paxlovid should not be prescribed if you're on a very complex medical regimen, but then if that's the case, then there are some other options that can be used. So that's a very good question. How do I decide on when to see a friend who likely had new variant? Okay, good question. To be absolutely safe, I'd probably do 2 weeks. The 10 days is a general recommendations, but I think 2 weeks is okay after your friend was diagnosed. Presumably that's also that your friend has no more symptoms. If they're still coughing, if they're still sneezing, if they're still having fevers, of course not. That's very unlikely, but it can happen. So, right. So there are some people, especially small percent of people who took Paxlovid may end up with a rebound. So if that's the case, you want to probably skip seeing that person for much longer, probably just at least additional 2 weeks, I would say. Great question. So even though this is more transmissible, it's more serious. No, so that's Benita, what I'm saying is it's seemingly not. So it's seemingly like it's more transmissible, but less virulent, which is a good thing. And by the way, you may have not realized that, but that's a very typical statement about chronic viruses. That's very routine. They tend to gradually become more transmissible and less virulent. So that fits with the general pattern overall. That's not related specifically to this issue. It's a general statement. Okay, so other than the risks of long COVID, is there any reason to be more concerned? No. That's basically exactly the whole, Benita, in just one sentence, you summarized what I'm always concerned about. I haven't seen any serious illness in the past 12 months. No one, even patients who are very complex, very frail. I've seen one person who did really poorly in the hospital. It wasn't my patient. I was covering geriatric service on the weekend, and patient was brought in, but that person was severely immune compromised. But my patients, even those that I would consider immune compromised, recovered very quickly with Paxlovid and supplements. So but I'm worried about long-term COVID, long COVID for sure. Okay, at this point, should we just anticipate the surge and just live our lives? Benita never asks stupid questions, right? So if she's putting a question, it means I'm going to be sweating. So that's a hard one, because I want to say that no, I still think we have to try to aggressively do preventive measures to the maximum. But at the same time, with that point, live your life, I'm hearing you and I'm honoring that. And so I think you also need to be very careful at individualizing your own risk. So let's say that my kids are 13 and 15, zero medical problems. Frankly, I'm not going to restrict anything. And I am at this point not like saying, you're going to a party, you're going to have to wear a mask. If I will tell them that, do you know what's going to happen? They won't go. So like, I'm not going to do that to them because it's pretty ridiculous. And frankly, just came back from Massachusetts. We went to was it a Costco or some kind of store, like the massive, and like I walked there buying stuff for a while, and like it took me probably 10 minutes seeing about 100 people before I saw first person with a mask, right? So like for kids, it's even more obvious. For us, I can just ignore it, but kids can't really ignore it. It's going to be too bizarre for them, but their risk is much lower. For you have to think of that too. So if you think your risk is a little higher, I say wear your mask and ignore everybody who says what, and live your life. And basically by wearing mask, I mean, do whatever you can, which is easy to do within the scope of minimizing exposure. Going to some massive outings, well, probably we're not the crowd going partying at 3 a.m. right to the club, but how do I know? Maybe if you do, well, you're taking a risk. Crowded spaces indoors, especially when there's a lot of like breathing going, like the dancing or singing, things like that. Okay, what are the effects of repeated infection on the body, making people more susceptible? Okay, great question. You guys, like, you're on a fire today. I love it. So that's one of the most important topics of research at the moment. It appears that the consequent infections in certain individuals promote substantial increase in inflammatory response each time. So like worse and worse and worse kind of thing. And because of that, it is actually expected that over time, we will be continuing seeing increased amount of long COVID. My expectations that basically what we've been seeing for decades with chronic Lyme, with chronic mono, we will be seeing a massive increase in patients like this, and things are not going to get better until we figure out how to suppress inflammatory response after each infection effectively, predictably, and at reasonable cost. Right now, there is no, like, except for Paxlovid, and the study of Paxlovid on long COVID is apparently underway, although I think it's kind of a off target completely, because you don't want to, I mean, you could give Paxlovid for a prolonged period of time, but then you're dramatically increasing risk of liver problems and other things. So no, there's no easy answers here. Unfortunately, I believe that we're going to see a continuous uptick in long COVID and increased numbers because of the repeated infections. Okay, I'll take last questions, okay, because I'm already over. Someone sent an article that typical symptoms of COVID have changed from respiratory to shoulder pain and muscle pain. CJ, I think the muscle pain has always been there. I don't think it's a myth. It's actually correct, but what's changed is the severity of respiratory symptoms decreased dramatically, while the muscle pain, aching, and all the joint muscle pains remain pretty much the same. So I would say that. And I see Sheila has a hand up. But Sheila, is that something quick, or is it going to take time?
Quick. I just didn't have time to write it all. Are you finding people who are using these supplements? You gave us a list, and exercising and keeping their health relatively high in the midst of this, faring better in the COVID situation?
Well, maybe that's why, this is maybe why I have not a single patient since the beginning being hospitalized. None of my patients got hospitalized. Maybe because I jumped on this very aggressive regimen for everybody on like immediately when it's all started. Maybe, or maybe I'm just lucky. I have no idea, right?
Well, I got on your supplements when you first announced it, and I've kept it going strong and probably upped it a little. And I haven't had any issues. Not that I'm thinking but I'm just wondering, is that helpful?
It's our personal experience. It's valuable to some degree, but it has nothing to do with evidence. So
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
just wanted to know, just basically.
but the way to think about this is a little different. Is it's a highly safe. The things that we gave you very safe. They probably have other benefits. And chances are, even if it's just a placebo effect, okay, why not? If you understand. So
Exactly.
that's my thinking. It's not like I'm prescribing a drug that has 1% chance of liver failure. Okay, I'm gonna shut up and pass it on to Ellen because I'm way past my time here.
Oh, it was fascinating. It's really great to hear you and to get the feel of the group. It sounds like you've all been together for a while, and that's just wonderful that you have this community. So thank you for inviting me. Hi, I'm Ellen Goldsmith, and as Janet said, I'm a licensed and board certified acupuncturist and Chinese herbalist. But my passion and my specialty is food. And I wrote this book, Nutritional Healing with Chinese Medicine, and it has 175 seasonal recipes. And the reason I wrote it, people go to, I'm an acupuncturist, so I'm on that eastern side of the integrative medicine spectrum. I live here in Portland, Oregon, which is a huge center for that. And we, at the College of Classical Chinese Medicine, where I teach here, we are part of the Oregon Health Sciences University Integrative Medicine Consortium. So we work a lot with conventional Western medical people. But when I teach my graduate students in Chinese medicine, I say to them, look, people are going to come to you for acupuncture. They're going to take your herbs. They're going to follow your recommendations for a while. Because, then you get back in your life and you're not really, you get caught up in your life, right? And change is hard. But people are always going to eat. And food is, our best medicine. As Dr. Kogan was saying, like he was talking about supplements. I don't know what he was prescribing, but that inflammatory response can be very well mitigated by eating food that are anti-inflammatory in nature. And the reason I use Chinese medicine is because Chinese medicine is, it's 2,500 years old. The notion of food as medicine and food, it's an inseparable idea in Chinese culture. But Chinese medicine it's very well codified. It's written, there are texts we can access from 3,000 years ago. And its development was really based on the fierce observation of nature. And we can see that, what happens outside can happen inside to us too. Meaning that, when it's cold out, we can feel cold, right? When it's hot out, we can feel too hot. So how do we balance that? How do we kind of balance with these concepts of yin and yang? I'm going to get a little technical here, but I wanted to introduce you to the concepts of Chinese medicine just briefly, and then just talk about how food as medicine can be integrated into your life. But the beautiful thing about Chinese medicine and its root in nature is you can look across culture all over the world and you can see traditions of food as medicine in all of them. I mean, many of us have lost them, but they're there with our ancestors from Africa to the Middle East to Europe to South America. Every culture has traditions of food as medicine. And it can be, the concepts, though, which are complex in Chinese medicine, it's years and years of study, and there's no way in 10 minutes I'm going to give you the gist of it. But you can translate it, because if we're looking to really balance our health and how we feel inside, then we're going to use food in a way that, like in winter, for instance, Chinese medicine, we look at seasonal health and seasonal eating. We look at the balance of what we call yin and yang, or warming and cooling, activity and rest. We look at is food going to warm us or cool us? And you just know that instinctively, like if you're going to drink ice water, you're going to cool down, right? If you're going to drink hot tea, you're going to warm up. If you're going to have a smoothie or something cold to drink, you're going to feel cooler. And so if you're a cold type person like me, you may not want to be eating a lot of cold food because that's not going to help you balance out. You can be too cold or you can be too hot. So there's yin and yang and there's flavor. And the beautiful thing in food as medicine is that flavor is not just this wonderful sensorial experience, but flavor also has therapeutic value. And we can look at all traditions of herbalism, and that flavor has actually import. You have importance. You have herbs that are pungent, like spicy herbs, like you have, herbs and spices in your kitchen, like garlic or ginger or pepper or chili pepper. And then you have herbs that are like cooling, like mint and lemon balm and chrysanthemum, which is used in Chinese medicine. You'll have foods that are salty. You'll have foods that are sweet. You'll have foods that are sour. You'll have foods that are bitter. And all of these flavors can actually, a Chinese medicine perspective, do different things. Like, if you eat hot chili pepper, you will sweat. And if you sweat, you will cool down. But that chili pepper also has antimicrobial, antibacterial properties too that are useful in cultures where there's a lot of, like in hot, humid cultures. You'll have flavor. You'll have, is it going to warm you or cool you? And how can you eat in a season where you can feel more balance? And so I wanted to talk just briefly, because again, I have like a few minutes to talk to you about winter, because we're really in the depths of winter. And winter is an interesting period of time. Like my daughter's in DC and she said to me that it's 60 degrees, which is kind of weird, but I know it happens every January there. But winter is typically, a very barren, cold time of year where there's not a lot of activity happening out here in the world, but there's a ton of activity going on underground. And underground, the seeds are regenerating, the animals are hibernating, the insects are sleeping, there's not a lot of activity here, but that regeneration and that rest that nature does is so that when spring comes, it can burst forth with a lot of force, and there can be a lot of energy that we need to grow and to kind of be reborn into spring. And as human beings too, we need to do that. We can look at nature and take its cue. We sleep more, we rest more, we regenerate ourselves, we replenish ourselves, we take some time to reflect, etc., so that we can, when spring comes, we can again burst forth and have that energy so that we can participate in the activity of the season. So let me just see my timing here. Okay, so just a few things that you can do in winter. I think, it's common sense. You're going to have more soups. You're going to have more long cooked, baked foods or roasted vegetables. You're going to add herbs and spices that are warming. You're going to have more slow cooked foods and soups and these kinds of things that will kind of build your inner heat to counter the cold that's going on out here. And what we want to avoid really are things that will not help us rest and regenerate. We want to avoid things that are, like I said, cold because it's cold outside. We want to avoid foods that are aggravating, that are inflammatory, like too much spicy food, too much sugar that can actually have an effect. And studies have shown like it can depress the immune system. It can add to sense of, blood sugar spikes, etc. So Chinese medicine, will look at all of the seasonal sense of well-being and what we can what we can do in those seasons to help us feel more in tune, so that in winter we can use this time, even though the world is telling us to keep participating, to keep being active, to keep planning and doing, there is a time for everything under heaven. There is a season, and this is the season for us to really rest and restore ourselves. I have in my book, I have 175 recipes, and I divide them up into seasons. And some of them I use some herbs from Chinese herbs, but I also use very typical herbs we'll find in our kitchen cabinet, and different foods from different cultures. I have, my borscht from my culture, my Ashkenazi Jewish heritage. I have my sister-in-law's chicken adobo in there from her Filipino heritage. I have, so we can use foods from all over the world and look at them from a perspective of how they'll help us feel more balanced in a season. I'm happy if you have any questions. I know there's a lot of material to kind of get together, but we can see the influence of Chinese medicine throughout. Like in Iran, there are doctors known as vegetable doctors. And because of the Silk Road and the travels taken thousands of years ago, we know that some of these concepts came to different cultures. And so that the Iranian vegetable doctors will use properties of heating and cooling to make certain recommendations for people. I think when we're looking at our own health, and especially with immunity, especially around now with COVID and RSV and the flu, we want to look at those things that could really be obstacles to us feeling our best, those obstacles to cure. And those are the things we want to kind of kick out of our daily eating, those things like sugar and processed foods and trans fats. And I think a lot of spicy foods can aggravate indigestion. And some people have food sensitivities. Some people don't do well with gluten. Some people don't do well with dairy. So if you know that there's certain things that when you eat them, you just kind of don't feel that well the next day, you might want to try just picking them out of your daily diet for a while, looking for some substitutes, and see how you do. And then if you eat them at some point and you then you can see, does that, it'll affect you. Someone said, is there a good list of anti-inflammatory foods to recommend? Yes, I would say that in general, the Mediterranean diet is a really good kind of broad spectrum anti-inflammatory diet. Basically, vegetables, dark leafy greens, any kind of vegetable, except for some people, peppers, tomatoes, potatoes, people can have a certain sensitivity to. Fruits are fantastic, except for some citrus fruits that people may have sensitivity to. Nuts, beans, seeds, these things. Again, some people do have a sensitivity or allergic sensitivity to walnuts or peanuts, but eggs, some people are sensitive to, but lean meats, fish, good quality oil like olive oil or avocado oil, these kinds of things are anti-inflammatory. And someone asked, is it better to get probiotics from fermented foods like sauerkraut over supplement? I think food is better than supplements because you digest foods, you assimilate them, you use them for energy. And so if you can get probiotics from fermented foods on a daily basis, even just a little bit, I think that's a fantastic thing. And, if you don't make your own sauerkraut or your own pickles, try to find them in the store where they're salt brined, where they're not added with a lot of extra chemicals or vinegars. I think they're better for us. So yeah, probiotics in our food, whether it be a good quality yogurt, a kefir, sauerkraut, pickles, kimchi, all of these things. And every culture has their specialty, of different kinds of fermented foods, and fermented foods are just so delicious. I love them. Yeah, so there you go. I hope I answered some questions there. Again, it's just a lot for me to try to get it to you, but I'm very happy to talk to you about just, what we can do in a season, or how we can use food to promote well-being and reduce inflammation in the body. Like Dr. Kogan said, that's really important, especially when recovering from illness, and making sure that we can not only put good food in our body, but we can digest the food that we eat, because everybody's different. Like the food we eat that was good for us today may not be the food that's best for us in a year or 6 months. So we have to be dynamic and flexible and adaptable, just like life is. There are changes all the time. I'm happy to just be in touch with you. You can go to my website, pearlnaturalhealth.com, or if you want, you can get my book on Amazon. And I'm always happy to talk to you, answer any questions you might have, and just generally talk about food. So I want to thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Oh, Ellen, just keep going. Keep answering questions if there are any in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I don't think Viktoriya will mind.
Okay.
I won.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions you have specifically? I did write some articles about using food again to support immunity when COVID first started happening, and you can find that on my website as well. But I think the most important thing is that with food, first, it's really important that we honor our own traditions. I think it's important that we find pleasure in it. Food should never be something that we feel like we're deprived, even though when we make change, we may be deprived. Any kind of change we make is hard, because we not only have, our own kind of traditions around it and our habits around it, but we also have a physiological habit that it's hard to break. And so we have to give ourselves, we have to have, just be kind to ourselves as we keep, making changes to benefit how we feel. But I think, I always tell my patients, I say, look, changing our food habits is probably one of the hardest things that we do. But gosh, if it makes you feel better, if it resolves certain digestive issues and minimizes allergic reactions just to, seasonal allergies, that was pretty simple, huh? I mean, so I think, like Dr. Kogan said, there's not a lot of evidence-based research on Chinese medicine and Chinese nutritional therapy, but there is traditional and thousands of years of lived experience that I think I think it's really important to bring it into the conversation of culinary medicine and Western nutrition, it's not a substitution, but it's an integration. It's an overlay that we can utilize another way of thinking to just broaden how we perceive food as medicine, and as a healing force.
Alan, did you see the question about, is it better to get probiotics from fermented foods like sauerkraut over supplements?
Yes. Yeah, I just spoke to that earlier.
Okay, good, good.
I always think food is better, but in certain cases where people might have, like they're coming off of C. diff, or they have, they've taken a really extended course of antibiotics, then a good probiotic, and not all probiotics are equal, from your physician, your naturopathic physician, etc. A specific one to your case can be very therapeutic and very beneficial. Sheila, you had a question.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, in the food category, how much of the food should we eat? Like, is it just like, say we ate a salad just once a day, and maybe a healthy drink, but how much food should you, or the plants or whatever, should you take per day to really make a difference in the health? You see what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean, Sheila. As many vegetables as you can eat, it's a good thing. I think this is the thing, like when we've been used to eating foods that are kind of more processed, etc., we can eat more because that's how it's been engineered, any kind of processed food. And I even mean healthy processed foods, natural, healthy processed foods have more sweet, have more salt, have more enhanced flavor. But when we eat real food, our body knows when to stop. It knows when we've had enough. So I think, they say you should eat like 9 to 13 servings of vegetables a day, but you can get that in a soup. If you have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different kinds of vegetables in a soup, there you go. So more vegetables, Sheila.
All right.
Enjoy
thanks.
them. Okay. Yes, and Al said, yes, it's quality over quantity, definitely. Thank you so much, everybody. I really enjoyed meeting you. And then who's here? Oh, Sheila, Rachel.
I think I'll take
Hi.
over. Alan,
Okay.
thank you so much. I really enjoyed this topic, and I can tell you eating healthier is part of my New Year resolutions, which I'm sure a lot of us have, which serves as a great transition to my topic, kind of. Because I am in a behavioral health. It's good to see all of you here. I think, I know a lot of you. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about how can we help ourselves to be at our best emotionally. And, mental health, emotional health is a part of our health in generally. So we're going to try this really cool exercise today that's called a mental rehearsal. And it can be used for pretty much any situations where you want to improve your performance and feel at your best. So the way we're gonna go about it, we're gonna use my favorite tapping or bilateral stimulation to help us install that best feeling. And those of you that might remember some of my previous talks, we're going to be using either butterfly hug. You're crossing your hands on your chest and you do a gentle tapping, one hand, another hand. You can add a bit of a rock into it, side to side or back and forth, or you can tap on your lap if that's more convenient, whichever makes you more comfortable. So I would like you to get comfortable. If you need to grab something or readjust your position, please do. If you want to turn off your camera and lay down, you can do that as well. And what we're going to do, we're going to close our eyes, take a deep breath, regulate our breathing, get inwards, in touch with ourselves. And we're going to think about the situations. Just pick one in which you want to perform your best. Okay, so take a minute to think about various results you want out of the situation. And once you have it, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to answer a few questions, and they are helping us to get in the right mood. The first one's going to be, what would be the best way I could possibly feel in this situation? In other words, you may not necessarily achieve as a result of this exercise, persuading another person to take your opinion, or, winning a prize or whatever that is. But what you will be working towards is having a certain feeling that you want to project. It could be, okay, I'm having a difficult conversation with my child or spouse or whoever, and I want to remain calm and not lose my temper. Or I'm talking to this person that always crosses boundaries or compromises my boundaries, and I want to set strong boundaries and keep it in place. So that's what I want to project. So think about that. And as you're thinking about it, I want you to come up with a short word or phrase that would express how you want to feel in that situation. That's going to be your cue word. That's going to be a word that we will install to help you bring that feeling when you need it in real life. Okay? So your cue word can be calm, confident, or it could be something a little more lucrative, like, I don't know, be strong or rise up. But something that is kind of easy to pull up when you need it. And once you have it, the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to think about a situation in the past where you possibly felt anything like that, or maybe part of it. If you're having a hard time accessing that feeling in your past, maybe there is a person in your life, a real person that you can borrow that trait from, or maybe there is a fictitious person like a movie character or your favorite, book character that you can borrow that trait from. So think about that. So once you have all of it, we're going to start getting into the ideal feeling that you're working towards projecting in that situation that you want to perform your best at. And imagine that you have an internal remote control that you can use to adjust brightness, volume, intensity, just to make it right. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes to engage your internal remote controls, self-regulate, get that ideal feeling you want to project in your situation. And once you have it, I want you to hold it together. I want you also readjust your posture a bit. That would help you to get into the mood of that feeling, if you know what I mean. For example, if I want to project confidence, maybe I want to open up my shoulders or raise my head up, something like that. So feel free to readjust, reposition how you want. Keep that cue word in mind, repeat it to yourself. Maintain the body posture and that feeling that you want to project. And I want you to start the round of tapping. Again, you can either tap on your lap or you can tap on your chest, however it is comfortable for you. And we're going to do several sets of those just to get that connection installed in your brain. So keep on tapping. Now I want you to pause and check back with yourself. What's changing? What's staying the same? Are there any new sensations that are coming up? Maybe you started noticing something that you haven't noticed before. Maybe it's your breathing that's changing. Maybe it's the tension in your shoulders or neck that's alleviating. Whatever that is that's positive, that's changing, I want you to bring into the mix of your cue word, of your body posture, and that ideal feeling that you are trying to install. Again, use your internal remote control to readjust if you need. And then once you have it and you're ready, we're going to start another round of tapping. So let's get ready and get started, and I'll tell you when to stop. And again, you can choose where you want to tap. All right, and we're going to pause right now. Again, we're going to check back with ourselves to see if that positive feeling is still maintained, if there is something new that's coming up. Perhaps you've noticed, okay, my breathing had changed. I am able to breathe in more fully, or maybe there is something else that's happening. So bring that in. And we're going to do another round of tapping. Again, keep your cue word, your body posture, your ideal feeling, and that any new positive sensations, bring them all together. We're going to do another round. And let's start. And let's pause. All right. Well, by now we did it like 3 rounds. I think the connection for most of you is fairly, it's developing, it's starting up. So we're going to test that connection. We're going to play a kind of internal movie script, and we will imagine the situation in which we are trying to exercise that ideal feeling that we were just working on. And we're going to insert that feeling into our situation. Okay, so you're going to be playing a movie script. It's like you're sitting in the movie theater and watching a story. Okay, and you're going to be working through it at your own pace, because everybody's movie script might be a little different. So you're going to imagine that you're fully in the ideal feeling, and you're going to imagine that you're showing it by your face, posture, movement, voice, and you're going to keep that cue word in mind as you're bringing all of that in. And we will start tapping, and we're going to tap for the duration of your movie script. Okay, if you don't like how your fantasy goes, maybe it starts deviating from a positive path, you can always rewind your movie. You can use that internal remote control to readjust how you want it to be and get that ideal feeling and restart it again. And then you can also, as you're working through your movie and reaching the ending of it, you can work on the ending, which is perhaps reaches an understanding, especially if this is in situations when you're dealing with someone who maybe upsets you or angers you or hurts you. So maybe in your imagination, you want to reach that understanding, or if this is a situation where you're kind of winning a performance base, or I want to be able to do that speech right, then that's kind of imagining yourself being at your best would be the perfect outcome. So I'll let you work through it. Once you run your movie script and you're at the end of it, you can open your eyes and come back to the group. All right, I see people are coming back. If anyone wants to share how your experience was, what changed, or maybe it didn't change, I welcome that. But this is a really cool technique that you can try on your own at home whenever you need to really work on performing at your best in different situations. So I hope it would be a nice tool to start your new year with. All right, anyone wants to share? And you can use chat or you can speak out loud. Sheila, do I see your hand being raised for this or from the previous?
I think it's from the previous. I need to put it down.
You didn't put it down.
Hi, Irene here.
All right.
Just to say I modeled myself to the Buddha. And my goal was to keep calm and to change through silence and and positive feelings the dialogue of the other, rather than confronting, just listening. And my visual, my avatar was the Buddha. And it was very calming.
Good.
Very calming. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Irene. I love your image. That's one of my also kind of favorite ones that I keep around, actually. So yeah, I'm glad it worked well for you. Anybody else? If not, that's all from me. And I hope that would be a good thing to, to keep in your toolbox as you are attending to your mental health.
Well, thank you so much, Viktoriya and Ellen. It sounds like there was this very significant interest in the chat before Ellen went to talk about the regimen. So since we have a couple of minutes, maybe I should just talk about it today so that we don't cut the questions next time. How's that sound to everybody? Or is everybody, or do we just want to end earlier? What's the consensus? All right, let me take 2 minutes. I won't take more. So you see the protocol in there. This is kind of the basic protocol. The things that you want to get of the quality. NAC should be a relatively good quality. You want to use brands that are pretty well trusted, pure encapsulated thorn, integrative therapeutics, designs for health, whatever protocol, any good brands. Now, the liposomal glutathione is quite tricky. So I actually use only one brand because I don't believe in most of the brands, even the good ones. I only use a brand called Quicksilver, and it's a spray under the tongue, but you can also get a one that comes in the liquid with a little teaspoon under the tongue. I know we're getting recorded, but since you asked this question, if this would be an actual medical presentation, I would never say the brands, but since it came up this direct. And NAD Gold is also Quicksilver. So why Quicksilver? They use very specific technology to make the particles small enough. So when you deliver liposomal products, it's all about the size of the particle. If the particle is larger than 100 nanometers, it's waste of materials. It's not going to get well absorbed. You may as well just take nothing. But anything less than 100 is what you're looking for. For example, for the liposomal glutathione, some of their particles get as low as 30 to 50. So this is what you want, because the smaller the molecules, the smaller the liposomes, the better the absorption is, because it goes in a lot faster. They don't have to get kind of opened up and shredded on the membranes. It takes a lot faster. The turmeric, I'm not actually going to give you a specific brand, but I'll give you the name of the raw material, which is called Miriva. I'll spell that in the chat. And there are several brands that sell Miriva products, so including Thorn, including Life Extension, including Jarrow, and I think there's at least 2 more, which I can't remember right now. So those would be my preferred. I kind of disagree that turmeric or curcumin must be liposomal. I think there's no evidence that that's somehow magically much better. Typically, good quality products will include a little bit of an extract of black pepper to improve absorption, and you want to take turmeric of any kind with food. So if you're taking the capsule, take it after you ate, and that's it. I disagree about the critical necessity for liposomal vitamin C. I don't think it's worth extra cost. It's great if you're rich and can afford whatever, but I don't think for average person it makes any sense. Vitamin C regularly absorbed just fine. And if you're not trying to get some really high level in the serum, which I don't even think are achievable with liposomal versus intravenous, but I think any vitamin C. The same goes for zinc, same goes for vitamin D. Quercetin, I tend to like to use in the combination with other things, bromelain, boswellia. So I use combination products, either dehist, so I'll put that, this is orthomolecular product, orthomolecular. And the dose is 2 capsules 2 or 3 times a day. or something called BCQ. Dose is the same. 2-3 times. 2 capsules, 2-3 times per day. And if you're using BCQ, it's actually a combination, both quercetin and turmeric, so you don't have to take 2 separate products. It can just be one. And that's all I have.